Well, the first misconception is that whenever you're going to be vulnerable, it will be used against you. Um, that's partially true in the sense that it will happen at some point, but it's not going to happen nearly as often as you think. And so, from all the research that's been done on trust games and trustworthiness, the findings seem to be that on average, the likelihood that you're going to trust somebody else is 50-50. It's pretty much the flip of a coin. And so, if somebody says, "Do you trust so and so?" you might say yes, you might say no. Again, it's almost left up to chance. But the truth is that you can trust somebody around 80%, and meaning that other people are far more trustworthy than you think they are. You think that you can only trust them 50% of the time. The research says that they're trustworthy 80% of the time. Now, it doesn't mean that you're never going to get burned. It doesn't mean that vulnerability won't be used against you. In fact, I can pretty much promise you that at some point in your life, it will be used against you. But as I mentioned, it's not going to be nearly as often as you think. But it should be expected that it will be used against you. Similarly, that if you ask for a promotion, at some point you're going to be told no. If you ask somebody out on a date, at some point you're going to be told no. If you ask for more money, at some point you're going to be told no. In other words, these aren't reasons to not do these things, right? I mean, it's just the nature of the game. It's just part of life. You will be told no. Things will be used against you. That's life. So that's kind of the first big misconception that I think we have, is that I don't want to share something because it's always going to be used against me. That's not the case. It'll happen rarely. The second thing is, when we surveyed 14,000 employees, we asked them, what's the number one reason why you are not vulnerable at work? And the number one reason is actually interesting, because the number one reason has the solution in it. And the number one reason was, I don't want to be perceived as being weak or incompetent. That's the number one reason why people are not vulnerable at work. And I mentioned that the answer, or that the response, is actually the solution. And so how do you help make sure that people don't view you as being incompetent when you're vulnerable? Well, you demonstrate your competence. This is where leadership plus vulnerability comes into play. In other words, don't just say, I made a mistake. Say, I made a mistake. Here's what I learned. Don't just say, I need help. Say, I need help, but here's what I'm going to do in the future to make sure that I can solve this problem on my own. Again, if you're only going to be vulnerable, then yeah, you will get that perception that you are incompetent. But if you demonstrate the leadership with your vulnerability, then that is ultimately the solution, because people won't view you as being incompetent all the time, because you're demonstrating that you're trying to close the gap. You're demonstrating that you're trying to get better, that you're trying to learn and grow, and become more competent at the role that you're in.